Assalamualaikum. I'm Muhammad Shazani. I will continue this presentation. So next we will gonna talk about septic tank, which the issue is unregulated and poor maintenance of septic tank. So first of all, what is septic tank? Septic tank is a basic form of on-site treatment facility. Consists of one or more compartment that provide treatment of sewage by means of sedimentation and anaerobic process. In other words, it also means that septic tank can be set as in situ sewage treatment plant because it helps treating the sewage water without connecting to the actually sewage treatment plant. But how? When the influent which the raw sewage flow into the tank, the heavier particle of substances in the sewage fall at the bottom of the tank and becoming a sludge, while the lighter substances like oil or grease will float on the top of the water known as scum. The microorganism that already exists in the environment will decompose the substances in the sewage, making it safer to be discharged. Septic tank can be made up from polyethylene, concrete, or fiberglass. The effluent, which the liquid that considered safe and less harmful after being treated by microorganisms through an aerobic process, it flows out of the septic tank into the soil absorption field or septic drain field. Via series of perforated pipe, the liquid then being absorbed by the soil or surrounding plant. In Malaysia, several types of on-site treatment system were used, such as a small sewage treatment system, individual septic tank, communal septic tank, and cesspit. I would like to highlight on cesspit because this type is the most type that used especially in rural or even suburban area in some part of Malaysia. Cesspit type of septic tank is the type that most easily to be built and lot more cheaper than others type of septic tank. This is because it is simply just digging hole in the ground and fill it in sewage water, especially fecal sewage water. Based on our research, there's no specific guideline regarding this type of septic tank in Malaysia. This building process of cesspit may not following a standardized guideline and cannot be considered as good and safe septic tank. This unregulated of building septic tank will lead to poor maintenance of septic tank itself. The problem with unregulated and poor maintenance of cesspit type of septic tank is because the building of the cesspit itself is not being standardized and being built correctly to ensure safetyness of using it. Then it will cause crack or may collapse over time, causing leakage of raw sewage into the environment. This also will causing the pollution, which is polluting the neighbor water sources, for example, ground, lake, or river. It also can cause waterborne disease such as cholera, typhoid, and many more bacteria causing diseases. Next is about sludge disposal, which the issue is the illegal dumping of sludge disposal. So, what is sludge? There's four types of sludge. The first one is drinking water sludge. It came from drinking water plant or tanks. It contains non-hazardous waste and does not require a complex processes of treating the sludge. Second is industrial water sludge. It came from warehouse, manufacturing premises, industry, and other businesses. It contains high amount of heavy metals, pathogen, and other chemical which can leach out if the sludge is not well managed. Uh, Third is fecal water sludge. It came from on-site sanitation system, septic tank, or cesspit. It contains within a human excretion, solid waste, urine and water, and other material that could not be disposed. The fourth and last is sewage sludge. It came from treatment of industrial wastewater sludge during sewage. It contains both organic and inorganic material, large amount of plant nutrient, some pathogen, and small amount of trace element. It might also contain human waste or other consumer product. The issue of sludge disposal in Malaysia is illegal dumping of it. In Malaysia, there's still not quite clear on who is managing the sludge disposal based on our research and finding. The law and policy is there, but the monitoring does not being done frequently. The only agency that directly managing fecal and sewage water is Indoor Water Consortium (IWK). However, it is not enough because it is only managing two types of sludge that can be considered less harmful and hazardous compared to the industrial sludge which may contain toxic chemical and heavy metal. or hazardous chemical in it. Normally, small factories or business that dealing with this chemical are the individual that causing this issue. However, some large corporate may also involve in this. What we can do with the sludge? So according to Water, several ways we can manage the sludge, either being disposed or reused. For this sludge disposal, we can dispose it as a landfill or incinerate it. For sludge reuse, we can use it as agriculture or landscaping, composing or co-compose, turn it into brick or tiles, used in power generation and also reforestation. So the ultimate use sometimes can be used as a land application of sludge on rubber plantation, composing, land reclamation, fertilizer, and also used in construction material. On a recent finding and research, there is a group of scientists from UITM that research on how we can use sludge powder as a material in the brick as a replacement from the concrete material. So it is quite interesting finding from this paper. The last part, which is about issues arise in food and agriculture during the COVID-19 pandemic. The first issue that we like to discuss here is changes of food consumption pattern during Movement Control Order (MCO). Before pandemic of COVID-19 announced, everyone has no restriction in terms of accessing to food, either processed food or fresh food. We can easily buy any food product that we prefer, which can be anywhere, anytime, or anything that we like. On my observation, we also does not quite mind on choosing type of food that can spoil quicker or need to be consumed in a shorter amount of time, like fresh produce, for example, fruit and vegetable, meat product, fishes, seafood, and other more. This food has shorter shelf life. We can easily buy it several times in a week, omitting the reason why we need food that can stay fresh longer for a longer time. After World Health Organization declared the COVID-19 outbreak as a global health emergency on 30th January 2020, several months after that, exactly on 18 March 2020, Malaysian government has started replacing all states in Malaysia under MCO after several days of positive COVID-19 cases, recording above 100 cases. This order restricts all citizen movement to reduce the outbreak of COVID-19 in Malaysia by closing all non-essential activities like education, several types of work, tourism, religious ceremony, and many more. It forces all citizens to stay at home for 14 days in the first MCOs. Unfortunately, this has triggered Malaysians to start buying grocery in a panic buying mode. They started to buy lot more groceries than usual, even though the store is still open during this order place, and also people are also allowed to go out and buy groceries or food. Another factor adding to this situation is people are afraid to go out, avoiding themselves from catching the coronavirus. However, their choices of food for the grocery was totally different compared before this pandemic. People tend to choose canned or processed food like canned sardine, instant noodle, frozen food, and dried food. Their reason is this type of food can last longer, cheaper, and also easy to be cooked or prepared compared to the fresh produce, which need to be consumed within 3 to 5 days. The uncertainty of when the MCO will be ended also adding the reason why people choosing this type of food. As we can see on the chart here, 40% of households consume less on fruit, while 40% more on instant noodle. They also cut down unneeded food like snack and sweet about 60% during the MCO. So the impact of this new food consumption pattern is producing waste of fresh produce, especially fruits and vegetables. This is because no one would like to include this fresh produce in their grocery when preparing for MCO. It will be abundance of fresh produce in the market, and if this continue, the supermarket will discard all these unfresh and spoiled products. As shown in the infographic by SW Corp studies on food waste around 8 until 19 May 2020 shows that 15.6% were unfinished bought food, which include the fresh produce. Moreover, as reported in the Star, farmer in Sandakan, Sabah has need to take the loss of more than 500 acres of orchard comprising bananas, pomelo, and other local fruit in that district. The second issue is the impact of MCO on the transportation of fresh food. So during the MCO period, restriction on movement have altered the function of each of the players in the chain by limiting the interstate movement, buying centers and operating hours, with some players not being allowed to function at all. High density markets such as a wholesale and night market were closed. As a result, the wholesaler, transporter as well as small timer retailer were temporarily excluded from the supply chain. These above restrictions are disrupted the supply chain at its most strategic point, which are the connection between the producer and the retailer through the wholesale and logistic operators. Wholesale serve the hypermarket, small time grocer, and also night market traders and also consumers. The above restrictions are disrupting the supply chain at its most strategic point, that is connecting point between the producer and the retailer through the wholesaler and the logistic operator. Wholesaler serve the hypermarket, small time grocer and night market traders and also consumer. The MCO created panic demand from consumer to stock up their supply for future consumption. This caused an artificial shortage as producer will not be able to respond fast enough owing the restriction on movement as well as roadblock. This lead to an increase of 30 to 50% in vegetable price at the retail market. The increase in price, however, was not passed on the producer as the normal chain from the producer to the wholesaler was cut off. This left them with excess unsold vegetable and losses at the farm. The above is just temporary mismatch that will go back to normal sooner or later. On a good development under the MCO was the growing use of ICT for distributing the produce direct from the farm to the consumer. This is really proof that necessity is the mother of the invention. This development deserves to be supported by government to encourage startup in vegetable and fruit marketing and agribusiness too. The scope for future is big, especially in the area of supply chain, both local and international. The MCO uncovered a number of shortcomings that deserve serious attention to ensure our food security. First, the country is not well prepared for a shock in food supply management. This is understandable, such as a disruption was abroad and unanticipated. But as some experts have concluded, the future of agriculture is going to be rough owing to climate factors, resources depletion, growing complexity, and in-market dynamic, among others. Second, the MCO revealed that migrant level has become indispensable in our food supply system. It presents at every level of supply chain, from farm to logistic to wholesale and retail. Most believe that these migrants are good for the country as they provide cheap labor. It reduces the cost of production, but it does not reduce the price of the vegetable. But the cost that we pay is actually the lack of innovation in farming, technology and logistics, and wholesale distribution sector, simply because their labor is cheap. Most farm and business activities are menial in nature, with a little adoption of labor-saving technology such as Internet of Internet of Things (IoT), sensors, and other advanced gadgets. As a result, our food sector has failed to develop its competitive advantage despite a good fundamentals for food production. The country has depended on the cheap import in the last 6 decades, and they continue to increase yearly. The biggest MCO reveal of all is the true colors of our food security situation. Not only the problem with the food availability, but more so affordability, nutrition security, particularly among the informal sector workers and daily wages earners. When they cannot afford food for their family, the children will suffer from malnutrition, which in turn may affect their physical growth. That's all from us. Thank you.